For years they waited, some hoping for a miracle, others counting down the days. But in February 2025, the wait ended. The doors to death row swung open, leading 4 men on their final walk to the execution chamber. Some fought until their very last breath, claiming innocence or begging for mercy. Others went silently, resigned to their fate. But no matter how they faced it, death came for them all. Their last meal, their final words. These are the final glimpses into their minds before everything went dark. Who repented? Who remained defiant? Who left this world without a single word? Let's find out. Stephen LaWayne Nelson. Stephen LaWayne Nelson spent his final moments strapped to a gurney in a Texas execution chamber. But his road to that room began years earlier with a horrific crime that shook an entire community. In 2011, Nelson walked into North Point Baptist Church in Arlington, Texas, under the guise of needing help. Instead, he brutally attacked Reverend Clint Dobson, suffocating him with a plastic bag before beating him to death. But he wasn't finished. He then turned to the church's secretary, Judy Elliott, viciously attacking and leaving her for dead. Miraculously, she survived. The crime was senseless and vicious, leaving zero doubt in the minds of investigators and jurors. Nelson was convicted of capital murder in 2012 and sentenced to death. For over a decade, Nelson sat in a tiny death row cell, appealing his sentence while the families of his victims waited for justice. He was no stranger to violence in prison, racking up multiple infractions, including an assault on a corrections officer. Despite his legal battles, the state of Texas scheduled his execution for February 5, 2025. On the day of his execution, he was led into the room where over 500 Texas inmates had died before him. The warden asked if he had any final words. Nelson looked at his wife and said, "I love you, baby." He appeared calm, almost at peace. Unlike many death row inmates who use their final moments to apologize, claim innocence, or lash out, Nelson kept his last words short and personal. His last meal remains unknown, as Texas does not allow special requests. Instead, he was given the standard prison meal of the day, a simple and unremarkable plate of food before his final breath. At 6:00 p.m., the lethal injection process began. Within minutes, his breathing slowed, his body went still, and by 6:10 p.m., Stephen LaWayne Nelson was pronounced dead. A violent life ended in silence, but for the families of his victims, the echoes of his crimes will never fade. Demetrius Terrence Frazier. Demetrius Terrence Frazier spent nearly 3 decades on death row, waiting for the moment the state would carry out his sentence. His crimes were as brutal as they were senseless, leaving a trail of victims that spanned multiple states. In 1991, Frazier broke into the Alabama home of 40-year-old Pauline Brown, a woman who had no connection to him. At the time, he was already a violent offender, wanted in Michigan for the murder of 14-year-old Crystal Kendrick and multiple other sexual assaults. His arrest brought his killing spree to an end, and he was sentenced to death in Alabama in 1996. But for nearly 30 years, Frazier filed appeal after appeal, trying to escape his fate. With every legal battle lost, his execution date was finally set for February 6, 2025. Unlike most death row inmates, Frazier's execution was carried out using nitrogen hypoxia, a controversial method that deprives the body of oxygen, leading to an eventual loss of consciousness and death. This was only the fourth time this method had been used in the U.S., and the first time in 2025. As he was led into the execution chamber, the warden asked if he had any final words. What he said shocked many. Instead of focusing on his crimes or expressing remorse, Frazier used his last moments to attack Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, claiming she had failed the people of her state. However, he also expressed some remorse, saying, "I am deeply sorry for the pain I have caused." His last meal was never disclosed, though Alabama allows inmates to request a special meal before execution. Whether he had one or not remains unknown. As the nitrogen gas filled the mask over his face, his breathing slowed, his body twitched, and within minutes, he was gone. At 6:15 p.m., Demetrius Terrence Frazier was pronounced dead, leaving behind a legacy of violence, controversy, and unanswered questions. James Dennis Ford. James Dennis Ford took his final breath in a Florida execution chamber in February 2025. In 1997, Ford lured Gregory and Kimberly Malnery to a remote sod farm in Florida under the guise of a friendly fishing trip. But once they arrived, Ford attacked them in front of their 22-month-old daughter, Miranda. Gregory was shot and beaten, while Kimberly was raped before being executed. The crime was cold, calculated, and sadistic, and when police caught Ford, his lack of remorse made it even worse. In 1999, a jury sentenced him to death without hesitation. He spent over 25 years on death row, filing appeal after appeal, but in the end, Florida upheld his sentence. His execution was scheduled for February 13, 2025. As he was strapped to the gurney, the warden asked for his final words, but Ford refused to speak. He declined to make any final statement, choosing to die in silence. However, he left behind a written note, though the contents were never publicly disclosed. Some believe it was an apology, while others think it was a final act of defiance. 3 men, 3 executions, and 3 lives ending in cold, sterile rooms. Some went in silence, others spoke their last words, but in the end, death came for them all. Justice or vengeance? You decide. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more real-life cases. Throughout history, the execution of female inmates has been a rare and profound event, often stirring deep societal reflections on justice, morality, and redemption. In March 2025, the United States is scheduled to execute several women, each with a unique narrative that has captivated public attention. As these individuals approach their final moments, their last meals and final words offer intimate glimpses into their minds and souls. Join us as we delve into the stories of these women, exploring the crimes that led them to death row and the choices they made in their concluding hours. Velma Barfield, known as Death Row Granny, holds the notorious distinction of being the first woman executed in the United States after the 1976 reinstatement of the death penalty. Her case is a chilling tale of betrayal and concealed darkness. Born in 1932 in rural South Carolina, Velma Barfield's early life was marked by hardship and loss. Married at a young age, she faced the challenges of poverty and domestic instability. Following the death of her first husband in a suspicious house fire, Barfield's life spiraled into a series of tragic events, including the death of her second husband under similar circumstances. It wasn't until the death of her fiancé, Stuart Taylor, in 1978, that authorities uncovered a pattern of arsenic poisoning linked to Barfield. She confessed to the murders of Taylor and her own mother, among others, citing her addiction to prescription drugs as a catalyst for her actions. During her time on death row, Barfield underwent a profound religious transformation, becoming a devout Christian. She expressed deep remorse for her crimes and sought forgiveness from the families of her victims. Her conversion garnered significant attention, leading to appeals for clemency from religious groups and even the Pope. However, these appeals were unsuccessful. On November 2, 1984, Velma Barfield was executed by lethal injection in North Carolina. For her last meal, she requested a simple assortment: a bag of cheese doodles and a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. In her final moments, Barfield expressed gratitude to those who had supported her spiritual journey, stating, "I want to say that I am sorry for all the hurt that I have caused. I know that everybody has gone through a lot of pain, all the families connected, and I am sorry. And I want to thank everybody who has been supporting me all these 6 years." Barfield's case continues to evoke discussions about the death penalty, redemption, and the complexities of human behavior. Aileen Wuornos, often called America's most infamous female serial killer, was executed in 2002 for the murders of 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990. Wuornos, a hitchhiking sex worker, claimed she acted in self-defense against violent clients. Her case drew widespread media attention, inspiring documentaries and films. During her trial, she initially pleaded self-defense but later confessed, claiming she killed for financial gain. Diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, Wuornos became increasingly unstable in her final years, renouncing her legal appeals and demanding to be executed. On October 9, 2002, Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in Florida. She declined a traditional last meal, opting only for a cup of black coffee. Before her execution, she made a chilling final statement. "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day, with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back." Her execution remains one of the most controversial in U.S. history, raising questions about mental illness, the justice system, and society's treatment of female offenders. Karla Faye Tucker's journey from a life of violence to one of faith and repentance remains one of the most compelling narratives in the annals of capital punishment. Her story challenges perceptions of justice and the possibility of transformation. Born in 1959 in Houston, Texas, Karla Faye Tucker's early years were marred by neglect, substance abuse, and a descent into a lifestyle fraught with crime. In 1983, during a drug-fueled burglary, Tucker and her accomplice brutally murdered Jerry Lynn Dean and Deborah Thornton using a pickaxe. The heinous nature of the crime led to her swift conviction and death sentence. While on death row, Tucker experienced a profound spiritual awakening, embracing Christianity with fervor. She became an emblem of redemption, engaging in ministry work and earning the support of various religious communities. Her transformation sparked international debates about the death penalty, particularly concerning reformed individuals. Despite widespread appeals for clemency, including from global figures and some victims' families, the state of Texas proceeded with the execution. On February 3, 1998, Karla Faye Tucker was executed by lethal injection. For her last meal, she requested a banana, a peach, and a garden salad with ranch dressing. In her final statement, Tucker expressed remorse and hope, saying, "I am going to be face to face with Jesus now. I love you all very much. I will see you all when you get there. I will wait for you." Tucker's execution marked the first time in over a century that Texas had executed a woman, reigniting discussions about gender, justice, and the potential for personal transformation within the penal system. Amber McLaughlin became the first openly transgender person executed in the U.S., a case that stirred debate on justice and identity. In 2003, McLaughlin was convicted for the stalking, rape, and murder of her ex-girlfriend Beverly Gunther in Missouri. She ambushed Gunther outside her workplace, stabbed her repeatedly, and dumped her body near the Mississippi River. In 2006, a judge sentenced McLaughlin to death after the jury deadlocked. While on death row, McLaughlin transitioned and later sought clemency, citing childhood trauma and mental health struggles. Despite advocacy from LGBTQ+ groups and legal teams, the request was denied. On January 3, 2023, McLaughlin was executed by lethal injection in Bonne Terre, Missouri. For her last meal, she requested a cheeseburger, fries, a strawberry milkshake, and peanut M&Ms. In a final statement, she expressed remorse, writing, "I am sorry for what I did. I am a loving and caring person." Her execution marked Missouri's first of a woman since 1953, sparking ongoing discussions on the death penalty, gender identity, and redemption. The stories of Velma Barfield, Carla Faye Tucker, Aileen Wuornos, and Amber McLaughlin serve as haunting reminders of the profound complexities within the human experience and the criminal justice system. Their final meals and last words offer intimate glimpses into their souls, reflecting remorse, defiance, or acceptance. As society continues to grapple with the ethics and implications of capital punishment, these narratives compel us to reflect on justice, redemption, and the enduring quest for understanding. Death row is a place of waiting. Some wait for mercy, others wait for justice, but for these 6 women, the waiting is over. Their crimes were shocking, their trials were relentless. Now, as execution looms, only 2 choices remain: their final meal and their last words. Will they beg for forgiveness? Will they go in silence? Or will their final moments be just as chilling as their crimes? This is the last chapter of 6 women sentenced to die in February 2025. And this is how it ends. Christy Michelle Scott. In the early hours of August 16, 2008, a devastating fire engulfed the Russellville, Alabama, home of Christy Michelle Scott. While she and her younger son escaped unharmed, her 6-year-old son Mason tragically perished in the blaze. Investigators soon uncovered unsettling details. Just 12 hours before the fire, Scott had secured a $100,000 life insurance policy on Mason, adding to existing policies totaling $175,000. Further scrutiny revealed a history of suspicious fires linked to Scott, including incidents at her father's and grandmother's homes. Notably, in 2005, her own house caught fire twice in 1 week, though arson was never confirmed. During her trial in June 2009, prosecutors argued that Scott had intentionally started the fire to claim the insurance money. Despite her protests of innocence, the jury found her guilty on 3 counts of capital murder: 1 for the murder of a child under 14, another for murder during arson, and a 3rd for murder for pecuniary gain. The jury recommended life imprisonment without parole. However, on August 5, 2009, Judge Terry Dempsey overrode this recommendation, citing the heinous nature of the crime, and sentenced Scott to death by lethal injection. Wendy Andriano. In the early hours of October 8, 2000, a distress call was placed from a modest apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. Wendy Andriano reported her husband, Joe Andriano, gravely ill and unresponsive. Joe, battling terminal cancer, had been under Wendy's care. However, the scene responders encountered told a story not of natural decline, but of unimaginable betrayal. Evidence revealed that Wendy had administered sodium azide, a lethal chemical, in an attempt to poison Joe. When this failed, she resorted to bludgeoning him with a bar stool and inflicting a fatal stab wound. The brutality of the act, coupled with Joe's weakened state, painted a grim picture of premeditation and cruelty. In 2004, she was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. As her execution date approached in February 2025, Wendy maintained her innocence, expressing remorse for her husband's death, but denying culpability. For her last meal, she requested a vegetarian pizza, a side salad with Italian dressing, and a slice of cheesecake. In her final statement, she said, "I am deeply sorry for the pain caused. I did not kill my husband." Her execution was carried out by lethal injection. Shauna Fordy. In May 2009, the quiet community of Arivaca, Arizona, was shattered by a brutal home invasion orchestrated by Shauna Ford, a self-proclaimed leader of the Minutemen American Defense, an anti-immigration vigilante group. Ford, seeking funds for her organization's Border Patrol activities, targeted the home of Raul Jr. Flores, believing he possessed drugs and money. Under the guise of law enforcement, Ford and her accomplices forced their way into the Flores residence during the early hours. The intrusion escalated into violence, resulting in the tragic deaths of Raul Flores, aged 29, and his 9-year-old daughter, Brisenia Flores. Brisenia was shot as she pleaded for her life, a chilling testament to the brutality of the crime. The case drew national attention, highlighting the dangers associated with extremist anti-immigration groups. In 2011, Ford was convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. As her execution date approached in February 2025, Ford maintained her innocence, portraying herself as a political prisoner. For her last meal, she requested a cheeseburger with fries, a chocolate milkshake, and a side of jalapenos. In her final statement, she declared, "I am innocent of these crimes. History will judge the true criminals." Her execution was carried out by lethal injection. Michelle Lynn Michaud. In the late 1990s, Michelle Lynn Michaud and her partner, James Anthony DeVeggio, embarked on a series of heinous crimes across California. Their modus operandi involved abducting young women using a specially equipped van designed for assault. This crime spree culminated in the December 1997 kidnapping and murder of 22-year-old Vanessa Leigh Sampson, a college student from Pleasanton. Sampson was forcibly taken into their van, where she endured unimaginable torture, including sexual assault with curling irons, before being strangled to death. For her last meal, she requested fried chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, and a chocolate milkshake. In her final statement, she expressed, "I am sorry for the pain caused, but was led astray." Her execution was carried out by lethal injection. Heather Levell Keaton. In the heart of Mobile, Alabama, a harrowing tale of child abuse and murder unfolded, leading Heather Levell Keaton to become the first woman sentenced to death in Mobile County. In 2010, the partial skeletal remains of 4-year-old Natalie DeBlaze and her 3-year-old brother, Chase DeBlaze, were discovered in secluded wooded areas across Alabama and Mississippi. Investigations revealed a chilling pattern of abuse. Natalie was allegedly poisoned with antifreeze, bound with duct tape, and confined in a suitcase for extended periods. Similarly, Chase endured severe mistreatment, including being taped, gagged, and forced to stand in a corner overnight, leading to their tragic deaths. Leavell Keaton, the children's stepmother, was implicated alongside their father, John DeBlaze, in these heinous acts. The couple's relationship began in 2008, and by 2009 they were living together with the children. Witnesses recounted instances of Leavell Keaton's abusive behavior, including binding the children with duct tape as a form of punishment. In May 2015, Leavell Keaton stood trial and was convicted of capital murder for Chase's death and reckless manslaughter for Natalie's. The jury recommended the death penalty, a sentence upheld despite multiple appeals. In June 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review her case, solidifying her fate on death row. As her execution date in February 2025 approaches, details regarding Leavell Keaton's final meal request and last words remain undisclosed. The tragic deaths of Natalie and Chase serve as a somber reminder of the profound consequences of unchecked abuse within a household. Kathy Lynn Saranana. On December 25, 2005, the festive atmosphere of Corona, California, concealed a harrowing tragedy within the Saranana household. Kathy Lynn Saranana and her husband, Raul Ricardo Saranana, had taken in their nephews, Conrad Morales, 13, and Ricky Morales, 11, from Fresno, seeking a fresh start. However, this new beginning devolved into a nightmare of relentless abuse and neglect. The investigation unearthed a pattern of severe physical abuse inflicted upon both boys. Tragically, Conrad's body was later found in a storage unit in Texas, revealing the extent of the cruelty they endured. In June 2009, Kathy Serenana was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death for her role in Ricky's death. Raul Serenana received a death sentence for Conrad's murder. As her execution date in February 2025 approaches, details regarding Kathy's final meal request and last words remain undisclosed. The tragic fate of Conrad and Ricky Morales serves as a somber reminder of the vulnerability of children and the profound betrayal they suffered at the hands of those entrusted with their care. 6 women, 6 final moments. Some begged for mercy, some went to their deaths in silence, others held on to their defiance until the very end. Their crimes were brutal, their punishments irreversible, but in their last hours, they were no longer killers or convicts, just humans facing the inevitable. Their last meals, their final words, the final choices before a fate that no appeal could change. Justice or cruelty, redemption or retribution. The executions are over, but the debate on the death penalty, that will never die.